Hey everyone! Let's explore the third seal of Revelation, a powerful symbol in end-time prophecy. In Revelation 6:5-6, the Lamb opens the third seal, revealing a black horse. The rider on this horse holds a pair of scales, symbolizing a time of economic hardship and scarcity. A voice declares that basic food staples like wheat and barley will be sold at exorbitant prices, while luxuries like oil and wine remain untouched. This imagery points to a period in the tribulation of severe famine and economic collapse, where everyday essentials become incredibly scarce and expensive. The scales represent the rationing of food, highlighting the struggle for survival during this time. The preservation of oil and wine suggests that while the poor suffer, the wealthy might still enjoy their luxuries. For believers, the third seal serves as a warning of the physical and economic trials that will accompany the end times. It's a reminder to rely on God's provision. So stay vigilant, stay strong, and subscribe to Heart Ministries.
Okay, so my last video was kind of long, so I had to break it up because I didn't want to make a 2-hour long video talking about all those different news clips. But this is part 2 of what we was talking about yesterday. But I had to break it up because I think I was talking mainly about the wars going on. So now I'm going to switch it up and talk about all of these pandemics that's going on. So with this whole monkeypox thing, and I tried to put all of the clips in order, so by what I'm talking about. But with this whole monkeypox thing, now as you all know, that it's spreading worldwide, all around the world, and it's affecting mainly Africa, but it has spread to other parts of the world, such as here in America. I believe in India, it has appeared, and a lot of people are concerned and they think that it might be the next pandemic. So let's not speak that. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully everybody's contained. Every country is trying to contain it, but with Africa, because the healthcare is so poor in those third world countries. Things like that. Just a disease such as monkeypox, which is not a fatal disease in most people, it still can get out of control on the continent of Africa because of the poor healthcare system over there, and because it's a third world country with abject poverty. So yeah, but also all of these mosquito-borne illnesses that's happening out here, what they call them vector-borne illnesses, with the triple E virus and West Nile and um, what's the other one? Triple E, West Nile is another one. There's 3 different vector-borne viruses out here now. That I know they said that the triple E virus, I think, is kind of like it causes sleeping sickness in human beings. Kind of like when a tsetse fly bites a cow, but it kills. It's a fatal disease. When a tsetse fly bites a cow and makes it sick, that's a fatal disease that causes it to go to sleep, and they eventually die. But with the triple E, from my understanding, is that it causes you to sleep a lot, but it's not for the most part a fatal disease, but it can't be treated. There's there's no vaccination or no cure for it, from what I understand. But yeah, West Nile has made a comeback, and there's a spike in COVID cases. And because kids are returning back to school, that's going to be a major concern because if somebody has it at school, they can infect teachers, students, the whole school building. So that's going to be an issue this upcoming fall and this upcoming winter. But what else? What else? A lot of the countries that's been experiencing all of the catastrophic flooding, they are now faced with a lot of, because they have all that standing water and all of that mud and sanitation floating all over the streets. They are now faced with diseases such as cholera. I call it cholera. Cholera is it's mainly um, when you have a lot of standing water, like with mosquitoes, when you got a lot of standing water, That's how people get cholera. And in Africa, in over a dozen countries in Africa, because they've experienced such catastrophic flooding, cholera, they have a cholera outbreak over there in many of those countries, and not just Africa. They have it over in, I think, Yemen, um, Sudan. Well, Sudan is Africa, but Yemen, I believe, in some parts of India and several countries in Africa, there's an issue with cholera. Um, but yeah, it's because of that flooding and all that standing water over there. It's just a lot of problems that those countries are going through that we as Americans, we don't have to deal with, and we're very blessed that we don't have to because we're a first world country. But also because of the catastrophic flooding going on in those countries, there has been mass destruction of farmland, which has crippled the economy and the crops over there in those countries. So now there's a food shortage. Um, This is a lot. It's a lot. It's what, like Nigeria, Kenya, Congo, Sudan, Yemen, India, just different countries all over the world are experiencing this. And some of the Asian countries, I'm quite sure they're experiencing a lot of those things too because they experienced catastrophic flooding this year as well. But right now, Gaza, Gaza has had a baby, a 10-month-old, um, come down with polio, and polio hasn't been. We thought polio had been eradicated pretty much, but no, there's a baby over in Gaza that came down with polio, 10 months old, and is paralyzed. So they had to ship in like 1 million vaccinations for the kids because it mainly affects kids. And they were over there vaccinating the kids over in the Gaza, the Palestinian refugee, in the Palestinian uh, refugee camps, because the kids were over there getting sick. That not only are they malnutrition, but now they have a risk of catching polio. Um, it's just sad. It's really sad. And then it makes it even worse is that yeah, they're faced with war, and Israel is steady attacking a lot of those refugee camps, and so they're making it difficult for the humanitarian organizations to get the vaccinations into the kids and the food and the medical supplies and all of the necessities because Israel keeps striking the aid convoys because the Hamas, the Arabs, the Hamas and Hezbollah, they are using those same convoys as disguises to attack Israel. So, oh, it's a mess. It's a war torn country, and it's a mess over there right now. Another thing that has been happening, famine. We talked about the famine with the destruction of the farm crops and shortage of food in several countries. America, we can't provide aid to all of those countries. We go broke ourselves trying to provide humanitarian aid to all those countries all over the world. We just can't do it. But other than that, we also have this whole phenomenon of dead fish washing up in rivers and just large bodies of water, lagoons and lakes and rivers all over the world, not just the country, not just one section of the planet. All over the planet, we have this phenomenon of dead fish washing up in large bodies of water, and it's causing a lot of problems in places like Thailand and Mexico. Here in America, it's been Philly and Baltimore. Dead fish have turned up. I think in California, believe in Florida, um, Italy, Greece, just all over the world. Dead fish have been floating just in the water, and I'm talking about millions of fish in some places. I think they said it was over 1 million dead fish in I think it's Baltimore. It's not Baltimore, it was Greece. It was like over 1 million dead fish. But it's sad. But it's a phenomenon that's happened. This has happened probably in a span of like a few months. Just dead fish just turning up everywhere, all over the world, and it's because of um a variety of things. Because of contamination of the waters. It's because of so-called climate change. That's if that's what they want to call it. But I just think it's just the shifting of the earth and the world. They can call it climate change, but it's just the way the world is changing. So yes, I guess that is climate change. Um, and then there's this species of, they call them invasive fish, that are turning up in different bodies of water throughout the country. And these fish are still alive, but I'm thinking that flood waters has caused these fish to wash up to these places, to these different countries, and it's wreaking havoc on those, countries like Thailand. But I posted a story about that too. They want to call it invasive black chin tilapias turned up in Thailand, and that's causing a major crisis in Thailand right now because of it's crippling their economy. Uh, what else? Oh, and these people that were snorkeling in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, like 2, 3 weeks ago, they were snorkeling in the sea in San Diego, and they ended up finding a doomsday fish that had washed up or floated up to shallow waters out there in the sea. Now, normally they say these fish are deep sea fish, well below sea level, and humans hardly ever see these fish because they're so deep into the sea. But I guess when they die, they float up to shallow waters, and so these people were out there in the sea snorkeling for whatever reason. I don't get why people do that, but they found a doomsday fish, which is called an oarfish, and they say that these fish have been known to turn up in shallow waters around the time of a major natural disaster. It's happened in Japan. It has recently happened in LA, and they said it's just a thing that these things are rarely seen by human beings. So when they do turn up, they say that it's usually at the time of a natural disaster, either shortly before or shortly after a natural disaster. So I think it's just a change in the earth. When something like that happens, there's some type of shifting or change in the earth that causes that fish to float up, and it may be an indication or a prediction of something that's about to happen, or some major shift or change in the earth. But yeah, a doomsday fish recently washed up in California. So let's see what else. Also, we talked about the fish kills, the fish kills, whatever. And it just so happened to have there was recently, a couple of months ago, a big old rainbow appeared in Fishkill, New York. So I thought that's pretty much that's a coincidence. That's some things is just, it's too much of a coincidence, and it's I mean, I guess I'm being overly spiritual, but yeah. Also, I don't know if y'all witnessed it on the news or in person, or if you've seen it on YouTube, but um, recently there were there was a fireball that flew across the sky in North Carolina and Tennessee, and then there was a meteor. No, there was an asteroid. There was an asteroid that flew across the sky, and it was spotted in Arizona and then in the Philippines. An asteroid flew across the sky, and different people in different parts of the world saw this. And then there was, like I said, it was I think they call it a fireball, but they said it was a meteor that flew across Tennessee and North Carolina. So it just makes me think about how close we are to the end, because Second Peter, um, Second Peter 3:10 says that but the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. And then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be burned up. So that was God's covenant with the rainbow. It was God's covenant that, the first time that he imposed judgment upon the earth and destroyed the earth, he did it by flood. So, and that was in the days of Noah. But this time, it said, although men will be behaving and acting wickedly as in the days of Noah, this time when God destroys the earth is going to be with fire. And the earth, that will mark the end of the age. And that's when, it will be the end of the world. So, um, the end of this world. So, yeah, just keep watch, man. I'm telling you. But I got some more stuff. But we just gotta stay prayed up, y'all. And if you ain't been saved, I'm telling you, don't wait until it's too late to get yourself saved, because this is end time, man. This is end time. And we've been trying to warn you all and tell you, we're not trying to scare you. We're just trying to warn you because we know what the Bible says is going to happen to people whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So, yeah. All right, y'all. But I'm going to come back. There's still some more. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about that's been happening since last night or yesterday that I'm going to cover later on today. So, all right, y'all. Peace and God bless.
Countries discovering new cases, nations screening arrivals, and the WHO sounding a warning. If all of this sounds familiar and alarming, you're not alone. It's been a year or two since we recovered from the global pandemic, but should we be preparing for another one? The virus in focus this time is Mpox. It's usually endemic to Africa, but right now, it's spreading across the globe. Pakistan has logged a case, so has Sweden. Is India at risk too? In fact, wherever in the world you're watching us from, should you be worried? Our next report tells you.
PHEIC, a public health emergency of international concern. That's what the WHO is calling the Mpox outbreak. Pakistan has logged its first case. It was in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
The health department is ensuring all measures regarding prevention, control, management and facilities. We have alerted our border health services teams at the borders to check all the passengers and screen them for any symptoms. Any suspected patients found will be isolated and managed in Peshawar.
So has Sweden. China will screen its arrivals. If this is sounding like déjà vu, you're not wrong. Will this turn into a pandemic? Should the world be alarmed? And how dangerous is Mpox? First, let's look at the virus. Mpox was first discovered in 1958. It was in a colony of monkeys. It was known as monkeypox before. In 1970, it was documented for the first time in a human, an infant in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Outbreaks were mostly sparked by people catching the virus from infected animals. Symptoms include fever, muscular aches, and large boil-like skin lesions. Until recently, it was mostly an endemic in Africa, but that changed in 2022. It spread across the globe. The WHO declared it a public health emergency of international concern. That was lifted in 2023. From 2022 to 2024, there have been over 99,000 cases of Mpox and 208 deaths recorded across 116 countries. Now, there are two subtypes to the virus, Clade 1 and Clade 2. Unlike the 2022 global outbreak, the latest surge is driven by the Clade 1, which is deadlier. Plus, it has a mutated variant, Clade 1b. It causes death in nearly 4% of cases. So, if it has been a public health emergency before, why the panic now? It's because of this variant. It seems to be spreading rapidly and very little is known about it. It moved from DR Congo to Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi and Kenya and then outside Africa's borders. So what happens now? Do we lock down again? The WHO says there's no need right now.
From the IFRC side, we do stand with what is recommended under international health regulations, which is that there's no need to close borders when we are in disease outbreaks. Diseases don't recognize borders. People will continue to cross a border, whether it is a legal crossing or an illegal crossing. It doesn't stop a disease from spreading.
So how big is the risk for India? With global travel at its peak, cases are likely to reach other countries. During the 2022 outbreak, India too reported cases of Mpox, so it could happen this time too. Which brings us to the cure. How do you treat Mpox? Are there vaccines? Currently, at least 2 vaccines are in use. They are recommended by the WHO. But the available vaccines have largely not been made available in Africa, those most affected by Mpox. But there is a plan to secure 10 million vaccine doses for Africa. As for how worried you should be, Mpox is not COVID-19. It's not airborne. There are also proven vaccines. While all of this will help to stop its spread, the challenge now is getting the medicines and vaccines to Africa, the continent that needs it the most.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making First Post 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished. On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can we expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. For the first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to First Post America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Well, this week, a New Hampshire man died of Eastern equine encephalitis, or Triple E, after being bit by a mosquito. U.S. health officials are warning that cases of mosquito-borne diseases like Triple E and West Nile are on the rise this year, especially in the Northeast. Hotter temperatures, more severe weather events, and piles of plastic trash have created environments where mosquitoes thrive, allowing insects to reach areas formerly inhospitable to them. For example, dengue cases are rising in Europe, where the disease used to actually be quite rare. The number of European countries with a self-sustaining population of a mosquito breed known to carry dengue fever has grown from 8 to 13 in the last decade. And that's why the number of locally acquired European cases in 2023 almost doubled compared to the year before. And Europe's Center for Disease Prevention and Control is warning that this year could be on track even to surpass that. It's a similar story for Puerto Rico, which has dealt with dengue outbreaks in the past, but never really to this extent. Look at this. Cases on the island are up 408% compared to a decade ago. Earlier this year, the government declared the situation a public health emergency. And it's not just that diseases are spreading to new areas. Mosquito season is also getting longer because of climate change. A 2023 study by the nonprofit Climate Central found that 173 locations across the U.S. have seen an increase in the number of mosquito days. The average increase for those locations is 16 days, but some areas in the country have had their mosquito days actually extended by much longer. These 10 cities have seen at least an extra month of days that are favorable to mosquitoes. Well, the Oropouche virus, referred to as sloth fever, has also made its way to the U.S. Florida's health department has reported 30 cases, all linked to travel from Cuba. One case was reported in New York also following travel. And Dr. William Schaffner joins me for more. He's a professor of preventative medicine, health policy, and infectious diseases at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Schaffner, always great to talk to you. First of all, what exactly is sloth fever? How do you get it? How did it get that name? Talk to us about what this crazy new illness is that's suddenly popping up on our radar.
Well, Lana, Oropouche virus is a rather obscure virus. It's native to South America and now Cuba. It occasionally occurs in large outbreaks. It is spread from person to person by mosquitoes, but also by tiny flies called midges. And after 3 to 10 days, you can develop fever, aches and pains, nausea, vomiting, feeling poorly, joint pains. This is not a fun illness, but it lasts for about a week and then will usually go away. Some people, however, feel very puny for a longer period of time and have some aches and pains in their joints. And after a week, it can come back. You have another few days of illness and it'll go away. So it's an odd virus, but fortunately, except for travelers to and from the affected countries, we don't have this virus in the United States yet.
And as you probably heard, I was talking about how many of these insect-borne, mosquito-borne, or in this case, midges-borne illnesses are spreading to other parts of the globe. As a response to all this, what can be done to prevent the spread in this case?
Well, I think what we can do is individual protective measures. You see, there are no vaccines against these diseases. So particularly here in the United States, if you go out now, please use insect repellent. Try to avoid going out early in the morning and in the evening. That's where many mosquitoes tend to bite more frequently. And go around your neighborhood and check out standing water, even in small amounts, because that's where mosquitoes can breed.
And Dr. Schaffner, we were talking also about Triple E, which is a disease that most people don't think of when we're thinking about getting mosquito bites. But we know that there are several places, particularly in New England, that have been so affected or so worried about Triple E that they've even shut down some of their parks from dusk to dawn. How concerned should we be about Triple E?
Well, there's no doubt that people in those locations in New England and down into the middle Atlantic states need to be very, very careful. Again, get that insect repellent out anytime you go out. Wear long sleeves, wear trousers. Be careful of where mosquitoes can breed around your house. Get rid of that standing water, and that's the best you can do. And of course, particularly for older people who, if they get these illnesses, tend to get much more severe disease, you might want to stay indoors more. Enjoy the air conditioning in this hot weather.
All right. Dr. William Schaffner, have a nice Labor Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
The World Health Organization reports that cholera epidemics are returning in the southern part of the continent, which is currently in its wet season. Now, many communities are experiencing landslides and floods as a result of increased rainfall, conditions ripe for the spread of cholera, even into places where no new verified cases have been recorded. In week 10 of 2024, 8 countries, Burundi, Cameroon, Comoros, Ethiopia, Malawi, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe reported a total of 2,242 new cases. Since the beginning of the year, the number of cholera cases and deaths reported to the WHO Regional Office for Africa as of 10th March was 51,998 and 1,118 deaths respectively. That is a case fatality ratio of about 2%. 5 countries have been identified as having acute crisis: the DRC, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and they account for more than 95% of both the total cases and total deaths this year. To cap these numbers, UNICEF has facilitated the delivery of over 26 million OCV doses to 8 priority countries with high cholera burden in the region: Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Somalia, South Sudan, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
After some of the worst flooding in its history, Kenya has a new challenge on its hands: cholera. The East African country's health ministry announced Tuesday that it was launching an emergency response to stop a cholera outbreak in which 44 cases have so far been confirmed. The outbreak was confirmed in the Tana River, one of the worst affected by flooding. Authorities say floodwaters have contaminated clean water sources, leading to a shortage of drinking water. Water cuts have been reported in the capital Nairobi too, as demand has overwhelmed existing treatment plants. The city's plants have a maximum production capacity of 525 million litres per day, but are facing a significant demand of 900 million litres. Cholera is transmitted through the ingestion of contaminated food or water.
Sudan is grappling with a severe cholera outbreak that has claimed at least 22 lives and infected hundreds, according to health authorities on Sunday. The crisis unfolds as the country endures a 16-month-long conflict and devastating floods, exacerbating the already dire situation. Health Minister Haitham Mohamed Ibrahim confirmed 354 cholera cases that has been detected across the nation, with fatalities rising amidst the ongoing chaos. The World Health Organization (WHO) reported that cholera has killed 78 people and sickened over 2,400 others in Sudan since January. Cholera, a highly contagious and fast-spreading infection causing severe dehydration, is transmitted through contaminated food or water. The outbreak initially emerged in Kassala province and has since spread to 9 localities across the provinces, and most affected individuals reportedly unvaccinated. WHO is now coordinating with Sudanese health authorities to launch a vaccination campaign. This outbreak adds to Sudan's mounting woes as the country has been torn apart by conflict since April 2023. The violence, which has devastated Khartoum and other urban areas, has led to the collapse of the healthcare system and displaced over 10.7 million people. Meanwhile, seasonal floods have killed dozens and displaced 118,000 more, further straining resources. Amid this turmoil, Sudan's military-controlled Sovereign Council announced plans to meet with US officials in Cairo to discuss a peace deal with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, under pressure from international diplomats to find a resolution to the ongoing conflict. Well, that's it for now. With this information, we wrap up today's story. Please stay tuned to US Most Read and please consider hitting the subscribe button. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
3 dams collapsed, and dozens of houses were swept away, along with many lives, in Yemen's northwestern province, Al-Mahwit. Landslides and flash floods hit the Hais district after more than 24 hours of heavy rain.
The floods came and swept everything we have, our belongings, beds, and the food we used to have. The flood left us with nothing.
This comes only a few weeks after swathes of Yemen's northern provinces, Hodeidah and Hajjah, were left submerged in water. At least 45 people died and more than 12,000 homes were damaged. More than 250,000 people have been affected by the flooding, according to the UN, with more rain predicted. While fears are mounting that the situation could trigger a cholera epidemic. This clinic has faced an influx of hundreds of suspected cholera patients since the floods began.
A week ago, my son was infected with cholera. Our whole household is now suffering from diarrhea. But we're unable to obtain treatment here, and sometimes we have to bring medicine from elsewhere.
The medical staff at the centre say they can barely cope.
We are now facing a medical crisis. If it is not tackled by the concerned authorities, it will turn into an even bigger disaster. The staff on duty is overwhelmed and could fall apart at any moment, and the centre could be closed.
Cholera spreads through contaminated water, and so with damage to infrastructure, a lack of proper sewage systems, limited access to safe drinking water, and an already weak healthcare system, the risk is great. UNICEF says more than 1,500 cases have been reported per day over the last few weeks. And it needs more money to respond to the problem adequately. The concern is that there may be a repeat of the last cholera outbreak between 2016 and 2021, when millions of cases were reported and around 4,000 people died. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Recently, we've been having an epidemic of cholera in our city, and there are lots of patients who are coming with frequent diarrhea, with weakness and watery rice-like stools. And the prescription that I have been giving most of them is arsenic album. It's the remedy for the present time.
This neighborhood of Sana'a faces a growing threat. Its fragile walls, defenseless against hunger that's rapidly settling here. For Abdul Karim's family, simple meals like this one are the exception, not the rule.
This is the first day we're having a meal with eggs. Sometimes we only eat bread with water, and at times we can't even afford bread. We tie our stomachs and give our children whatever crumbs of bread we can to keep them from starving to death. We give them a little so they don't die.
But today, someone is missing at mealtime. Abdul Karim's 6-month-old boy, Wissam, is in intensive care at the Al Sabin hospital. Too few meals have made him so weak, his life is now in danger.
Yesterday, my son became severely ill and developed a fever, and his abdomen swelled a lot. We no longer knew what to do for his treatment. Doctors told us it was necessary to admit him to intensive care, and we informed them that we could not afford the costs. They said they would not take responsibility if he died, so we had to admit him to intensive care.
The UN says the number of children in Yemen under the age of 5 suffering acute malnutrition rose by 34% in the last year. That's more than 600,000 children going hungry, and some 220,000 mothers too. Despite a years-long stalemate, the conflict between the Houthis and the Saudi-backed government based in Aden has left the economy in shambles.
There's an increase in cases of malnutrition because of the high cost of living, the war, and the siege on Yemen. Then there's the spread of epidemics and diseases and the limited entry of medicine into the country, which has led to the spread of malnutrition amongst children.
The capital, Sana'a, has been under Houthi control for nearly a decade. Harsh US-led sanctions against the group have further hurt the region, crucially preventing many from accessing money sent from abroad. The sanctions are in response to Houthi fighters targeting commercial ships in the Red Sea, in what they say is an act of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. At the height of the crisis, the World Food Programme had to pause its humanitarian assistance there last December. Doctors say little Wissam cannot wait any longer. He needs more medical tests if he is to survive, something his family simply cannot afford. Ibtisam Genford, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
This is what was desperately needed. Not just the polio vaccine doses, not just the health professionals capable of carrying out this particularly complicated campaign. The humanitarian pauses, no fighting for 8 consecutive hours in specific areas. Israel and Hamas have agreed to this. Gazan families rushed to get their children vaccinated.
We escaped death with our children and were displaced from place to place for the sake of our children, and we found these diseases. We are thankful to the institutions that contributed to vaccination and helped bring this vaccination into Gaza for our children.
640,000 children are set to get a vaccine after the first polio case in 25 years was detected last month. The 11-month patient is one of the babies who did not get their vaccine because of the ongoing violence. Infectious diseases have spread in the enclave in recent months. We're living in dire conditions in a tent. Water's not clean, food is not clean. I've come here to vaccinate my children. I was afraid that they would contract the disease. We heard that there were cases in Gaza, so I came because I'm concerned. The campaign is set to be carried out in 3 phases in central, southern, and northern Gaza over 3 to 6 days, if everything goes according to plan.
Catch of the day, but it's not a welcome one. Baskets of black-chin tilapia hauled out of ponds on Thailand's eastern seaboard. It's the epicenter of an alien invasion that's decimated local fisheries. These waters should be full of prawns. Now they're all gone. The robust little fish, native to Western Africa, has eaten everything in its path.
When we add more prawns, we can't avoid the black-chin tilapia. They breed so fast. It's a lot worse than before.
Along the coast, they're trying to clear out huge ponds full of brackish water, a mixture of fresh and salt water. The species is so durable, it can tolerate both. And it's spread so successfully, it's been found as far inland as the border with Myanmar.
These sluice gates feed the ponds with water that comes in from the sea at high tide, but they also go inland and feed canals and rivers. And the real concern is those waters are going all across Thailand, taking the invasive species with them.
The Fisheries Department's buying back whatever the locals can catch. They want to try and eradicate the tilapia and replace some of the local income that's been lost. But the buyback scheme's only in place for a month, and the population's already well established in the wild.
Most of the black-chin tilapia, they swim in the canal. So most of the canal, still plenty of black-chin tilapia.
Local farmers say the outbreak started here at an aquaculture research facility in the same area as the first sighting of the fish. The company that owns the facility had a license to import black-chin tilapia in 2010, but denies that any of its stock could have escaped to the wild. But as the species has spread, it's devastated local ecosystems and aquatic environments.
So there are always examples of a disastrous situation worldwide, but for Thailand experience, I think this is probably the worst nightmare probably come true with the introduced species.
In just 19 days, the government brought back 500 tons of black-chin tilapia, but it's unlikely to dislodge this alien invader. There's always the one that got away. Tony Cheng, Al Jazeera, Samut Sakhon on the Gulf of Thailand.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Happy Independence Day 2023. As I look out on the ocean, I think about all the slaves that traveled from Africa that were thrown into the sea. 2 Corinthians 11:10, as the truth of Christ is in me, my boast of independence will not be silenced. Revelation 20:13, and the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Revelation 22:20, yes, I am coming quickly. And the dead in the sea shall rise again. The slaves that were carried on like sardines from Africa, they will rise again soon. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Praise His holy name.
Now to a story a lot of people in Baltimore are talking about tonight. Take a look. Thousands upon thousands of dead fish floated to the surface in the Inner Harbor. Certainly a disturbing sight with a stench to match, but tonight we are learning what was behind that fish kill. WJZ live at 11 o'clock. Christina Mendez live at the Inner Harbor. And Christina, you have everyone's attention. What have you learned tonight?
Hey, Rick. Well, experts are saying that these fish were oxygen starved, and the fluctuation between the weather earlier this week caused a significant role in what happened.
Absolutely over 1 million fish.
A staggering fish kill surfaces at the Inner Harbor.
I've been working at the aquarium for 37 years. This is the worst fish kill in the Inner Harbor that I've witnessed.
Jack Cover, a general curator at the National Aquarium, says the extreme heat during the day, coupled with cool temperature dips in the evenings this week, caused a phenomenon known as thermal inversion.
The top layer of the brackish water gets dense. It drops to the bottom like a ceiling falling down, and it stirs up all the inorganic material.
Cover says the bacteria takes oxygen out of the water, and in this case, young menhaden by the thousands died, who have a lower tolerance for bad water conditions.
This is a primary food for our striped bass, ospreys, cormorants down the Inner Harbor. So this is really a tragedy.
The fish kill was hard to miss for Inner Harbor visitors, and not just by sight.
When I walked down from Federal Hill, I could smell it. I've never seen a kill this large.
Not all was lost, though. According to Cover, the aquarium's new floating wetland exhibit acted as a refuge for some fish through aerators, a signal Cover says that more could be done to ease environmental pressures.
Very happy to see the fish in that shallow channel, including some of these menhaden that swam up into it, live through this event.
City DPW workers, as well as separately the aquarium staff, did their best to clean up the fish out here, but any that remain, I'm told, will eventually decompose and sink to the bottom. I'm reporting live from the aquarium tonight. I'm Christina Mendez for WJZ.
The stench of this silvery blanket of death is unbearable, according to the mayor of Volos, as authorities plow on with cleaning up hundreds of thousands of dead fish after they washed up on beaches and in the port.
The city and the Pagastikos Gulf are facing an ecological disaster. But those responsible for this environmental crime have a name.
Volos' mayor and others blame the Greek government for not dealing with the problem before it reached the city, by, for example, putting up nets to keep the freshwater fish from leaving their riverbeds. While an investigation is underway, the fish are thought to have died upon contact with salt water. The environmental disaster is due, experts believe, to mass floods last year further north. The lake waters of those historic floods are now drying up, pushing the fish downstream. Locals fear that this second environmental crisis could further hurt tourism in the central Greek city.
After the floods, our city was devastated. The sea and the Gulf have now been filled with fish from Lake Kala. Our revenue has dropped by 80% compared to last year.
Environmentalists also fear that so many decomposing fish could harm marine life.
The second potential issue is widespread pollution from pathogens that could develop, potentially harming marine mammals in the Gulf, such as dolphins and turtles.
The environmental disaster comes as Greece is recovering from its worst forest fire this year. Experts warn that the area around Athens can no longer afford to lose its forests to extreme blazes and droughts, which, like the floods, are linked to climate change.
On May 22, 2024, hundreds of protesters gathered in front of the Environmental Surveillance Centre of the Kerala State Pollution Control Board at Elur. The protest was triggered by a massive fish kill on the night of May 20, 2024, caused by allegedly polluted waters in a branch of the Periyar River. The protest included fishermen, backwater aquaculturists, cage fish farmers, environmental activists and concerned citizens. They demanded an explanation from the Kerala State PCB for these recurring incidents. While the State Pollution Control Board claims the fish deaths resulted from oxygen depletion due to the opening of the Pathalam Regulator Cum Bridge, protesters and local representatives deny this claim vehemently. They believe it is because of the industrial pollution. Tragedy of industrial pollution in the Periyar River is not new. On June 11, 1998, it was a massive fish kill in the polluted waters of the Periyar that prompted local residents and environmental activists to speak up for their right to live in a pollution-free environment. Since then, Purushan Elur, an environmentalist who has been at the forefront of protests against the pollution of the river Periyar, has seen the river's constant struggle for survival in the Illur-Ediyar industrial belt. According to the Kerala Water Authority, at present there are about 336 industries existing in Ediyar Industrial Development Area, consisting of large, medium and small scale industries. These industries include metallurgy, petrochemical, rubber, leather industries among others. On Wednesday, protesters from Varapura, Kadamukudi, Kodad and Cherlanur panchayats along with representatives from Elur municipality participated. In a powerful statement, they dumped dead fish on the state PCB office compound, demanding compensation and financial support. In response, the PCB chairperson assured an investigation into the negligence of PCB officials. Factories along the Periyar River will also be scrutinized and strict action will be taken against those dumping effluents. Furthermore, a recommendation will be submitted to the state government to provide 6 months of free rations to the affected traditional inland fishermen.
As summer approaches, temperatures have been soaring across the southern parts of North America. In Mexico's northern state of Chihuahua, officials say the heat has caused thousands of dead fish to blanket the surface of a lagoon. Thousands of fish at the Bustillas Lagoon in Chihuahua died as water levels became dangerously low after long dry spells with temperatures soaring above 40 degrees Celsius. According to government data, around 90% of Mexico is suffering from some form of drought, the highest level seen since 2011. Local authorities at the lagoon covered the dead fish with lime to mitigate public health risks related to the decomposition of the fish. Meanwhile, cities and towns in the U.S. states of Arizona, California and Texas broke several calendar day heat records last week as the high-pressure heat dome spreads north and west into the U.S.
1,000 dead fish found floating and washed ashore in Calaveras Lake. The fish killed were discovered by Texas game wardens this morning. KENS 5's reporter Simone Simpson explains why events like these aren't surprising to those who frequent that lake.
It happens once a year.
The fish here didn't stand a chance against the heat.
This lake, at times, the water temperature, when I was on it the other day, was 97. By 12, 1, 2, or 3, it's 105 degrees.
Those high temperatures leading to oxygen in the water depleting, making it hard for fish to breathe, and unfortunately killing them, according to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Fishing guide Manny Martinez says the lack of wind isn't helping aerate the water.
Some parts of Texas, other lakes, it happens. Matter of fact, it happens, I think, maybe once or every 2 years at the Texas coast and the flats. And it is aggressive.
The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department said majority of fish impacted were red drum, which the organization stocks in the lake. They estimate around 1,000 fish were affected by this fish kill. Reporting from Calaveras Lake, Simone Simpson, KENS 5.
Those are not rocks along that shoreline. Take a look at this. Those are hundreds of dead fish making for a gross and smelly situation down the shore. Residents there are dealing with quite a situation. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jim Donovan. The fish kill is in Little Egg Harbor Township on the southern tip of Ocean County by Kentucky and Louisiana Avenues. That's where we find New Jersey reporter Ryan Hughes. So, Ryan, what have you learned so far?
Oh my gosh, Jim, as soon as you drive onto this street right here, you get a whiff of that nasty and just terrible smell in the air. Take a look behind me. The only way to describe it is absolutely disgusting. That's what neighbors have been telling us. And I want to point out that boat right there. It almost looks like it ran aground into the sand. Nope, that is dead fish floating all around it in this lagoon. We just spoke with neighbors over the past hour. They tell me they first started noticing all these dead fish in the lagoon on Saturday afternoon. As you mentioned, this is at Kentucky and Louisiana Drives on Osborne Island in Little Egg Harbor Township. Neighbors say they can smell the rotten smell inside their homes. They, of course, can't sit outside right now. And the dead fish have also been attracting a large number of seagulls to this area. Right now, it's not exactly clear what caused this fish kill, but we're told this also happened last year, and neighbors say something needs to be done about it. Take a listen to two neighbors describing this disgusting fishy situation.
It's uncomfortable. You don't really want to spend time outside. People normally are like, coming down here for the summers and they're swimming, but you can't do that right now.
It's awful. It's like non-stop, and with the wind, it just keeps blowing and blowing. So the smell's not going to go away until the fish are out of here. So it's going to be a long time of us smelling this rotten, dead fish smell.
And back live, Jim, you mentioned hundreds of dead fish. I would say possibly thousands of dead fish. The smell is just overwhelming out here. We did reach out to New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for some more information, possibly trying to figure out exactly what caused this. They told us they are aware of the situation and they will get back to me. We also reached out to the township and the mayor, but have not heard back. And sometimes the smell is so bad you have to put a mask on. Again, we've been speaking with neighbors. They say on Saturday, this was so much worse, but the smell is still really bad. They have to stay inside their homes. We're going to go speak to another neighbor in just a short time. But again, they just want something to be done about this because they say it also happened last year. We are live this afternoon in Little Egg Harbor Township. Ryan Hughes. Jim, back to you.
How strange. I don't blame them. Get something done right away. Thank you, Ryan. We look forward to your updates.
A doomsday fish washed up in San Diego, which may support this Bible prophecy. The Bible foretold the emergence of a terrifying creature, and it's happening now. Scientists are now convinced that the Bible's warning was true, as this creature has just been spotted. The Bible describes a colossal sea serpent called Leviathan, destined to roam the oceans until God's final judgment. God also declared that this creature is untouchable, impervious to any weapon, and can only be defeated by him. Recently, things have taken a shocking turn. Observers using Google Earth have noticed a shape resembling a massive sea creature moving underwater. An anomaly larger than anything previously discovered has also been detected. Moreover, unusual behavior among marine animals has been reported. Large groups of whales and dolphins have been filmed beaching themselves, as if fleeing from something. These signs are not mere coincidences. The Bible predicted these events long ago. This could be interpreted as a divine warning before Judgment Day. If you want to see this creature, type Leviathan in the comments.
Revelation, chapter number 20, verse number 13. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every man according to their works. In verse number 13, we have a detailed account of who is to be judged. It first starts out, and the sea gave up the dead. Now, if we look, the word dead is actually necros, and it actually means a corpse. So if we look at this, even though it's dead, but it actually means corpse. So the sea gave up the corpse that were in it. Then it says, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. So if we go and we look at hell, hell is actually Hades or Hades, or another translation, Sheol. And that's actually talking about the grave. So we can say all the souls that were in the grave got up for judgment. And then all the souls that were in the sea got up for judgment. Now, just in case someone was not buried, or just in case someone didn't die in a shipwreck, it says, and death. In other words, when you cover death, then you covered everyone or everything else. Let's look at that word. That word death is thanatos. And that is dead, deadly, death. We can see it used here. So this way, every soul was covered. Those that died in shipwrecks. Those that were thrown overboard. Those whose bodies were thrown in the sea to hide them after being murdered. Whatever the reason may be, all of those souls had to stand up and give judgment. All the millions that were in the grave, that were buried, had to stand and give judgment. Millions after millions. Graveyards emptied out. They had to stand judgment. And they were judged by their works. This would not be a place where you can come up with some smooth saying and slip by. No. God will judge each and every person according to what they had already done. There will not be any plea bargaining. There will not be any changing of this sentence. We will be judged, or if you were not in the first resurrection, you will be judged on the day of judgment in the great white throne judgment by the Father himself. And the criteria is real simple. What did you do? That's what you will be judged off of. Plain and simple. Just like any court of law. The judge, a good judge, wants to see the evidence. Then he can make, or she can make, a proper decision. God knows. God's just using the evidence to show to each and every one what his decision will be. God, in the name of Jesus, we ask that you look on and bless and have your way. Help men, women, boys, and girls to rejoice at this judgment because they did the proper thing, Lord, and because they sought you. And now they will be going into paradise with you, Lord. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Thank God. Amen.